G'day and welcome to the Hunting Connection podcast. My name is Zach Williams and I am your host. Here we'll connect you with hunters, fishers and outdoor enthusiasts from around the globe. This podcast will share hunting and fishing stories including past experiences and tackle the tough hunting stereotypes our community faces. We hope to be a positive influence to those outside the community while also having a laugh along the way. Hope you enjoy the podcast. G'day and welcome to another episode of Hunting Connection podcast. On today's episode, we have Luke from Oz Fish and Game. How you going, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Self?
That's good. Yeah, good, thank you. Good. You know, just dealing with all this politics stuff going along with bow hunting in South Australia at the moment.
Yeah, good fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, in terms of that, obviously there's some pretty serious implications for the hunting activities in that area. What spurred that on, and more than anything, where do you think it's going to end up?
So,
complete elimination, or
what's led it on is people who go down to their local sporting goods store and buy a $150 compound bow. They buy some cheap arrows with field points, and they don't know any hunting regulation, laws, ethics on and anything about bow hunting. You know, broadheads, arrows. And they see a kangaroo or they see a possum or a neighbour's cat and shoot it. And because field point won't kill an animal the way a broadhead does, these animals escape. As Robbie brought up on the Blood Origins post he did today, so if you're listening to this, it was like about 4-5 weeks ago on Blood Origins. Someone a year and a half ago shot a seal off of Kangaroo Island with a bow.
I was going to mention that, yep.
There's been a bunch of those things happen. So that's where it's come from. And also that the Deputy Premier has a lot of anti-hunting and animal rights group ties. So duck hunting and bow hunting are what's under her thumb that she wants to get rid of. And yeah, it slowly leaked out that that's what she was doing. The group Shassa, they contacted me, and as soon as I got the hard proof I needed, I just went on a rampage sharing it with everyone. So
it got a lot of airtime pretty quickly. I was actually really impressed by that.
Yeah, it just helps.
You know, at times with the algorithm and stuff like that, sometimes it's really hard to spread that information, but it's been quite good.
Yeah,
actually.
It has, because people get worried. You know what it's like. But you know, I messaged
for good reason too.
Bunch of people emailed them, so fingers crossed. But by the time that this episode comes out, all of that's behind us for now. You know, I know that there's a couple meetings coming up with some politicians with Chaser, so fingers crossed that they go where they need to go, and the stuff that Robbie has shared today goes a bloody long way.
So are they sort of spearheading this sort of pushback against the Burns?
Yeah, so none of them are really bow hunters, but they've run this conservation. I can't remember what it stands for, but it's something Conservation Hunters South Australia, something like that. So that came across their path because Susan Close told all of the people below her to start telling people to get braced for this, and then one of her people leaked it out to them, then they leaked it out to me, and then when they started doing a mail and MP thing off of their website, and then when we got the first email back from an MP saying, yep, this is what she's doing, we've jumped on it straight away, and you know, I started sharing with Blood Origins and Cow from Cows Week in Review, messaged Ted Nugent, nothing back yet. I've messaged Tim Wells. Tim Wells asked what he could do, so hopefully he does something. But yeah, just get as many big names out there as possible.
That'd be pretty amazing. Yeah, I've often thought that, like, instead of just being sort of regional specific, you know, an issue in, you know, South Australia or Australia, you know, for a bigger landmass, make it international, you know what I mean? Get everyone on board. You know, you're not going to have the power to maybe persuade politicians, but if you can get it out in the media and show international support, and again, you know, people like Blood Origins, Meat Eater, stuff like that, you know, to show the positive side of hunting.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's not just kill that pest animal or one of those sort of mindsets. It's really let's be sustainable. You know, let's restore some habitat, control the herd, get rid of some of the disease if it's present. Obviously CWD in America, chronic wasting disease.
Yeah.
But and keep that going, you know what I mean? That we can, even with fishing, we can be those conservation people to maintain things without taking too much.
Exactly.
To have too much of a negative impact.
And it's a weird balance in Australia, and it's something we as hunters in Australia have to balance with. We need to get feral and introduced animals numbers down, and we also want them around for, especially deer, like, pigs, foxes, all of that stuff, wipe them out. But, deer, they hold a spot in my heart, and I don't want to ever see the landscape without them, but I know that they're damaging to the land as well. And yeah, so, but yeah, your question before on whether I reckon that will go through, I don't reckon it will go through because of the public backlash, and I'm hoping that it won't. If it does, it's going to have a lot of upset people like myself. I've got a lot of properties that are bow hunting only because they might be a small property but have houses nearby, and the owners are more comfortable with bow hunting than rifle hunting. So yeah, it's a weird one. You're going to have these properties where you're not going to be able to manage these pest species.
Yeah.
So
well, it's funny, in a world where a lot of people are so anti-firearm, you think they'd support bows a little bit more. I guess in a sense it's an easier target because, a deer might run off.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's going to survive with an arrow on its side, but people think that, especially the uneducated, you know what I mean? See it run off, it must be alive, you know what I mean? It must run back to its wallow or something like to that effect, and it's suffering, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like, people don't understand that there's no humane death in the animal kingdom. Like, deer have antlers on their heads to fight and spear each other. So they'll kill each other with their antlers and then die a very similar way to how an arrow kills them. Or they'll die of infection from it. Or, old age. They wear all their teeth out and then they starve to death.
Yeah, that's it's really interesting too, with the feral animal control. Excuse the dogs.
Nah, it's all good.
So, we talk about deer, and they use, what's that word they use for it?
Anthropomorphizing.
Yeah, that's the one. Rogan, I think, coined it. But
I actually think it was Ranella, and then Ranella, then Rogan started copying Ranella.
There you go. I stand corrected. But it's so true, with like Bambi and different stuff like that. We see that, and it's a gentle baby, you know what I mean? Wouldn't hurt a fly.
Yeah.
But I believe it may have been South Australia, could have been Victoria, that recently someone died due to a kangaroo.
Yeah.
Obviously, killing kangaroos is a big
I think that was Western Australia. There was a 70-year-old man or something along those lines got gored by it. But there was also in the news the last couple of days, a lady in the States, she got mauled by a mule deer in a driveway.
Just about to say that, yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I know, for instance, Newcastle base where I'm from, Raymond Terrace, you've got a lot of waterboard land there which you can't hunt on.
Yeah.
And obviously they're probably worried about contamination and stuff like too, that could being drinking water. But there's a lot of deer there, right on new housing estates, and the housing estates aren't getting bigger and bigger. You got big bucks, come the rut, fighting on people's front lawns.
Yeah, is that Roosa passing through there?
Yeah, I think that's the primary one. But the question is, when does public safety come into it too? Like, they talk about deer not being able to hurt them, let them run free. There's got to be that control in place.
And that's the good thing about the States. Some of those suburban areas, they have actual bow hunting programs where they train bow hunters to hunt deer in suburban situations. So, that's where bow hunting can be resourceful for those situations, and the meat's getting utilised, and it's not just getting wasted like when government shoots anything.
Yeah, well, that's the biggest disappointment for me. It's funny you talk about Ted Nugent, talking about how many tons worth of meat does he donate every year?
Yeah, off of his Michigan ranch, his Texas ranch, the chopper culls that he does on pigs, they go back through. So you see him blasting pigs with ARs and whatever else, whatever else
but
you can get in Texas.
Phenomenal use of meat.
Yeah, all of that meat. They have Hunter for the Hunters, Hunters for the Homeless programs where you donate meat to the homeless, and all of that feeds homeless people. It goes to all of those shelters and stuff like that. Like, it's crazy that You know, we go waste hundreds of thousands of kilos of meat every year from these government chopper cows. You know, it's a massive thing in New South Wales. It's a massive thing in Victoria. It's a massive thing here in South Australia. Like, we have a spot in South Australia, the southeast, where most deer species are found here in South Australia. And it's a very, like, we've only got private land hunting, no public land. But these chopper cows, they'll go fly over and push the deer out of private property into the public to shoot them during the rut.
Yeah.
So there's all hunters out there, you know, on these, like, because you can pay to access some blocks down there. And so people are hunting these blocks, and then they've got government flying over and pushing these deer back into the parks and shooting them.
Yeah, that's rough. I mean, we've had that. I can't remember if it was New South Wales, Victoria. It could have been both.
Yeah.
Come the last rut, same situation where it was like, hey, you know, you've got certain forests. Oh, by the way, they're closed because we're doing aerial culls.
Yeah.
It's like, this is peak season, guys. You want to control these deer so badly, do it off season.
Yeah, well,
you know, people are paying good money to get that license, to book a week away on holidays, to spend fuel, food, bullets, whatever the case is, to turn up and they're locked out. Because there's a sign at the gate, you're not told beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. And that money that they're paying to to do it is funding the culls. But yeah, one of the past guests and good mate of mine, Cody Giron, he's from up near Bathurst, and he had the same thing. He was out hunting this year on his property, and he's having helicopters push deer off, and you know, he's seen deer get shot on his property from helicopters and other people's property. They're supposed to have permission before they do it. You know, a lot of farmers don't give them permission, but they do it anyway. Yeah. So it's...
I would be ropeable.
Oh,
I can't believe that. Yeah.
Cody can't even hear the subject without going like almost Super Saiyan on shit, you know?
Yeah, well, that's the funny thing, you know, doing all your firearms stuff. You know, we're talking about before the podcast started, just applied for firearms license training to be able to conduct that for my hunting club. So I think to enter someone's land with a firearm and not even fire, it's 5 years jail.
Yeah.
For good reason, you know. So how does that apply when you've got professional contractors, you know, flying around taking shots in someone's yard?
Exactly.
Like, surely there's got to be repercussions to that.
If they're caught, you know.
Well, I guess that's the thing. How do you prove it?
So let's get on to the questions, because we've gone onto this and no one knows anything about you yet. So so you briefly said it before. Where are you from?
Yep. So based in Newcastle.
Yep.
Spent most of my life living around here. Did a brief stint in Brisbane. Didn't really find it too great, so I came back down this way.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, so spent a lot of time at a younger age fishing Lake Macquarie. So that's obviously running Oz Fishing Game. That's sort of how it ties in there. We didn't have any really large, you know, fancy holidays as a kid. That was sort of our outlet, was boating, fishing, and camping.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing. Awesome way to grow up, you know what I mean? At least every second weekend, you know, back in the day, you used to be able to camp on Pulbar Island in the middle of the lake, or what's now Murray's Beach. Just amazing. So did that at a young age. Always wanted to get into hunting. So family friends have property at Tamworth. I believe it used to be hundreds or thousands of acres, raising cattle and stuff like that. So obviously the firearms around. As most young boys, you're sort of fascinated with that. Wow, you know, can I use it? So, you know, had a little bit of a play with 22s, 410 shotguns. Absolutely loved it. And while mum and dad were happy for us to use it in that regards, when the topic of hunting came up, they tended to shy away a little bit, which is curious because my pop was a hunter.
Yeah.
And my uncle did a bit, mostly trap shooting. But
so pop on your mum's side or your dad's side?
On mum's side.
Yeah.
So one of my earliest memories of hunting was they used to live at Harrington, so just near sort of Taree, mid-north coast, and had the house, nice big renovation on the back of it, and there's a big old chest freezer underneath, sort of Pop's little dungeon, a big brick sort of hut. But in that chest freezer used to live the ice creams. So again, young kid, you're like, hell yeah, you know, I'm going to get in there. And I remember sitting there one day and they were talking about a cat. Like, why would the cat be in the freezer? Like, it didn't compute. You know, I didn't understand at the time. Anyway, so my brother G'd me up. Let's go check it out. It's like, yeah, no worries. I remember, like, sneaky rip the corner. You know, like, it's like Christmas time. You're ripping your present, you know what I mean? Trying to suss out what's in there. Ripped this corner of his bag. So we just it's a completely foreign concept to us at the time. Pulled it open, and sure enough, there's this sort of big ragdoll sort of cat in there, just blown away. And Pop was walking down the backyard, whatever it was. Oh shit, slammed the freezer door, pissed off upstairs. But that really stuck with me, but not in a bad way. It was just that curiosity.
Yeah.
Like, what is it and why are you doing it? Like, I couldn't understand. And a lot of aunties these days, I think, of the same way. They don't take the effort to comprehend why you're doing it. You know, what's going on. Only the other day, I saw a neighbour's cat, walking across the front yard with a dove in its mouth. You know what I mean? There's a reason, there's a purpose. Sometimes for deer and pigs, it might be food. Sometimes it's pest control. It's really hard to get that point across sometimes to people, but that piqued the interest in hunting, getting back on it. So didn't really get into it until my late 20s. So around 2017, had a serious motorbike accident. So I did broke 4 ribs, shoulder, and punctured a lung. Good fun.
Nasty.
Couple months off work. Had a bow sitting there, so I did a bit of archery at a younger age. Mum was into that, but I couldn't really hit the broadside of a barn. You know what I mean? Definitely no practice or guidance. Pre-internet days or pre-mainstream internet days. And so sitting at home for a couple of months on end, flicking through TV, YouTube, doing all those sorts of things. I'm like, I've got the bow sitting there. Or once I heal up, obviously, why don't I get back into that? So I started researching hunting, and it sort of grew from there into a passion.
That's awesome.
So before I got my firearms license, that was a great endeavor to get that. I think it was 10 and a half months wait.
Yeah, wow, that's insane.
Good on New South Wales Firearms Registry.
Yeah, it's a strange one how much that changes state to state, and just it could be really good one year and bad the next year. You see posts on Facebook all the time, people complaining about how long they're waiting. I think it was Western Australia. You have to get a license for each firearm you get.
And I believe if you modify that rifle, so it's even changing a scope out, for instance, I believe you need to get that piece of paper amended to reflect that new item.
Yeah, wow. Firearm laws are nuts, and they're silly to go down sometimes, because you hear something from someone and you're like, oh, all right, and you keep hold of that, saying, you tell everyone else that this is the law, this is what I've been told. And even firearms instructors get it wrong. Like I seen a post the other day, someone saying that you can't travel into South Australia with a firearm from another state, and it's like, no, you can. And they're saying it was real bad, and he's like, my firearms instructor told me when I was doing my course. And then one of my mates who's a firearms instructor saying, no, you're wrong. And this guy just kept sticking.
Oh, even on that note, I messaged different state agencies a few months ago, just trying to get information about people to travel interstate. What's your rules? Because a lot of stuff, even New South Wales, for instance, I can't remember the exact wording, but they talk about something to the effect of, you must take all reasonable care to stop it from being stolen, effectively. Yeah. So that's great. So how does that apply to situations where you're hunting for 7 days? We don't necessarily have the backcountry, but in a situation where you're in a car, you might be sleeping in a motel, or even in a swagger tent. How does that apply there? I couldn't get a straight answer. Yeah, and talking about all transportation laws and stuff like that. I believe 2 or 3 of the state firearms agencies didn't even bother to get back to me. As a, whatever you want to call it, a website, a business, a club, whatever you want to refer to it as, who's trying to educate and help people to help them follow the law.
Because they don't want it to be easy. They don't want it to be easy. I've floated around an idea with a couple of mates before. If you had an app where people can go to, they click what state they are, you got the map of Australia, I'm in South Australia. You click South Australia and it comes up, your different laws, and it gives you, it has all of your firearms laws, word for word, all through. So it's just easier to find, because people do say on the internet that it's harder to find, different states' regulations. Depends, if you know what you're looking for, people can find it. Shout out to Dan, he's one of my good mates from ET. He finds law like that. He can find anything. But a dumbass like me scrolling through, if you don't know what you're looking for, you can't find anything. So if you had an app like that, where you can find all your hunting regulations, all of your firearms regulations, all on that one spot when you click the state. And
It's a good idea.
even like when you click the state, it comes up. It gives you the firearms licensing information. So how you apply for your license, what training you need to do for your license. Gives you, because here in South Australia we get given a SSAA handbook. I'm not sure on other states, but have all of that digital so people can do it all on their phone and find out everything. Have dummy tests for those states on each one. I think something like that would be.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I'm actually kicking myself somewhat to an extent with that. I was doing the New South Wales AR license training. So recently the New South Wales DPI made like an online training platform, which is great. Moving with technology, I fully support that. The problem is that I posed that to HWSA, Hunters and Shooters Society of Australia, when I was doing the training for them, and they asked on my behalf, could we implement something like that? Trying to modernize things, obviously ease of access for the hunting community, and potentially the DPI have taken that idea and adapted it for themselves.
It seems that COVID pushed a lot of those agencies to make things better equipped and easier to do and to do online. So that's one benefit of COVID.
Well, I thought it was a cracker idea. I'm like, damn it, they took it. Whether it was true or not, maybe someone else had the idea a long time ago.
If they
takes a while for bureaucracy to get the wheels turning. So
be like, I told them to do that. Give yourself a pat on the back.
That's it. We all need that sometimes.
Exactly. So what do you do for work, mate?
So I've recently started a job for a steel manufacturing, making train wheels.
Nice.
So
it's different.
Yeah, it is. So I did 7 years in Ashfield, which was interesting. Civil construction, living out of a suitcase, sort of like drive in, drive out, for want of a better term. You see a lot of Australia, which is good. From Ballina, Dubbo, places like that.
Yeah, cool.
But it's just nowhere to live. You know what I mean? That drive in, drive out sort of thing. So recently started. So a lot of my time is painting wheels at the moment and operating cranes.
Cool. That's interesting for sure. Definitely a different answer to most people's jobs. It's just a trade or retail or something like that. But I like it. It's cool. We've had a train conductor on.
Okay.
So we've gone through how you got into hunting and fishing. What type of gear are you running? Are you a rifle hunter? Are you a bow hunter? Are you both?
So everything really. So the first thing I bought after 7 years in road construction, I took a voluntary redundancy. So I wasn't going to get any sort of career progression. I just had to go full. And the first thing I went out and bought after that was a PSE Carbon Air 35 bow, like top of the line.
Yeah, very top of the line, very fancy.
Very forgiving to, someone who's still a rookie archer, really, you know what I mean? I'm never going to compete in the Olympics or anything like that. So
neither could I, man.
Absolutely amazing. That was a step up from my Abbey Archery Cockatoo I think I had, which I still use for bow fishing. So that answers that question too. So that's as far as bows. A lot of the bells and whistles on that too, because why not? I've got a few rifles these days. So the one I use primarily is my Frankie Horizon 270.
Yeah.
Cheap entry-level rifle. Yeah, I actually won that in a competition, which is really cool.
Man, I hate people that win rifles in competitions.
I know, right? So shout out to Arms and Ammo Beresfield for that one. So they had a competition. This is pre-COVID days, where it's like, come in, spend $200. Beretta sponsored them. Quite a few places sponsored them.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, well, I've been eyeing off an Adler A110 shotgun, lever action shotgun. I should just buy that. So I went in there, bought that with, the short barrel and the long barrel. And next minute got a phone call. Hey, you want a rifle?
Cool.
Like, serious?
2 birds, 1 stone.
I thought someone was taking the piss, but won it. Was pretty happy about that, actually.
I bet.
So definitely cannot complain with the free rifle. So I use that one quite a bit, as you can imagine. And for what it is, it's a great rifle.
Yeah.
It's accurate. It's nice and lightweight. So I've got a few lever actions too. the old Marlin, 45-70 and 30-30.
Very nice.
Nice rifles, a bit on the heavy side. I put a scout scope on the 30-30, which is good. But yeah, between that, a few 22s, they're only cheap blinkers.
Yeah, nice. Very nice. Very nice.
It's good. I'm in the process. I've got a Category A permit to acquire sitting there, and it's a coin flip away from an air rifle or a side-by-side shotgun. I can't decide. So if anyone's got any opinions, flick me a message, let me know.
Definitely. Yeah, I've thought about those 30 cal. Like, I've sometimes go down rabbit holes watching people hunting with the higher caliber air rifles, where, you know, in Africa they're hunting with the 30 cows, and America, you know, they got like the 40 cows and the 50 cows, you know.
Yeah, I didn't realize a 50 cal air rifle was a thing until recently.
Yeah, it's
I can't imagine the trajectory of that thing. It'd be like a rock, wouldn't it?
Just a
It'd
very
have to
fast. So what type of hunting do you do? Are you like just going out for a morning, for a day, for a couple of days?
So for a long time it was just that single day or a multi-day hunt based around home, so around the Newcastle area, up until basically April this year. So I won the Ballot Hunt. Do you know about that in New South Wales?
Yep.
So I won that pre-COVID, 2018, whatever it was. Might have been for the start of 2019. So we had bushfires hit us that year.
Yep.
Closed down all the forests. Pushed back. We had COVID. I think it got pushed back and cancelled the second time because of COVID, from memory.
God damn.
And yeah, the start of this year, they're like, hey, the ballot's still on. Some of you are going to retain your tags, but half of you will get redrawn out, and you may get your spot back.
Yeah, wow.
And I was fuming, as you can imagine.
I bet.
Yeah, to say the least. Thankfully, obviously, my name got pulled out and I got a spot. But yeah, that was excellent. So that was down at Menace State Forest near Tumut.
Yep.
Beautiful, beautiful part of the world. If you haven't been there, highly recommend it. Just nice mountain country, beautiful freshwater stream flows through there, awesome camping spots.
So for the people that don't know what the ballot is, you want to just go into that? Because I'm very familiar with the hog deer ballot down in Victoria, not so much.
Yeah. So every year, New South Wales R license holders can apply for a free spot on the ballot. So basically, there are 3 primary state forests in New South Wales. Could be 4. I get the numbers confused. How it works out, but highly productive state forests. And to make it even or fair to people to access them, they don't rely on the usual booking system online to allocate spots. So obviously people can sneak in there early, you know, wipe out a whole block. What they do is they allocate 4-day sections for this hunt, and basically you apply for it. So it's around November of every year. They put it up for grabs. You can put in a 2-day time preference. So the forest, I think, Maragal, or one of the Maragals, there's many. Menace, which is the regular hunting. There's also Menace bow hunting area, and possibly a second part of Maragal. Either way, so that gets drawn February each year. If you win, you get a 4-day hunt. You can select yes or no. You can't change the dates. None of that's transferable. Yeah, you get a shot at the rut.
That's cool.
Prime hunting opportunity. Great forest. Highly recommend if you get a chance.
So what species you run into in those forests? Does it change, or is it very similar across the 3 or 4?
So I've only been to Menace. Highly productive, as I said. So driving in there, I saw 4 foxes and a couple of rabbits. So straight out the gate, you get excited. You know what I mean? Driving in the car, I'm like, got you tomorrow. Sandbar deer, plenty of sandbar deer.
Yeah, cool.
As for the other species, I did see a large fallow. Probably wouldn't break any records, but for me, it took me a second to be like, holy crap. For me, this thing was huge. And I didn't take a shot at him. It was a bit outside my comfortable shooting range. And as much as I kicked myself after, I just didn't trust myself at the distance. But I bagged a nice sandbar stag, which was cool.
Awesome.
I walked away from a female stag simply for the fact that I had 2 very, very small eskies. And I know one of your questions would be, what do you bring, or what should you bring? Bigger esky, giant esky. Because I'm a big fan of use what you take. You know, I'm not going to shoot a deer and let it ride.
Yeah.
Especially female deer. It's pointless. Unless you are controlling numbers on a private block or something like that. You know, I understand that. But yeah, I couldn't justify taking the second one. But for me, coming from Forest in Newcastle, which some people say they're hunted out, some people say there are obviously animals there. It was just awesome to see so much activity in a forest. You know what I mean? And
Definitely.
yeah, it sort of reinforces that you walk through some of the higher pressure, hunting pressured forests, and you sort of question your ability to hunt. It's like, is it me? Is it the animals? Is it bad timing? Yeah, it's not that nice, warm, fuzzy feeling to know that, I can find deer and I can sneak up on them.
So, what type of backpack you're running? How many liters when you're going out on a day hunt type thing?
Yep. So it's an Eberl stock backpack. They sponsor Rocky Mountain Elk Federation, Foundation, whatever it is in America. So I bought that secondhand. I think it was just a Facebook Marketplace find. Few $100. Massive score. Obviously being well used. Bit pungent smell, so I had to clean that out and let it air for a little bit. But yeah, it's good. Just that the waist strap on them, just to get all the weight off your shoulders and sort of even it out. It's great.
So what? How many liters is that?
What's the fair size? It'd be over 40.
Yep, nice.
So 40, 50, something like that. Something my mate did teach me is just depends if you're camping away from your car and all that. Travel light. Advice for new hunters and stuff like that is basically don't carry everything in the kitchen sink. You may not need it. You learn very quickly what you do and don't need, or will not use. Travel a bit lighter in that sense.
I'm a sucker for carrying way too much stuff, but I'll take some comforts out with me. I got a 75-liter pack plus 10, so it's a 85-liter pack. But I carry the Jetboil. I carry seasoning, oil, coffee, noodles.
That was me when I first started. And again, not having any productivity in those forests sort of breaks you a little bit. And Newcastle's really, really steep too, to make excuses for my failure. The heat, the steep forests. It's a good time. It's always a good time, right? You get out of the house, you disconnect from your 100%. Phone and life and all the bullshit. But I strip it down a little bit. Don't get me wrong, all that crap's in my car. I'll just walk back to the car.
What about like binos and bino harness you're running?
Yeah, so definitely that is a must-have. Just to spot animals, I used to go out with my little rangefinder. So I've got one of them too. It's an RX 650 Leopold. Nice. 6x zoom or something like that. It's good for what it is. Works really, really well, but they are no substitute for a set of binoculars.
Definitely not.
Yeah, so I've got 10x42 Vortex.
Yep.
I can't remember the price.
They're around or Crossfires, Diamondbacks.
Around the 800 to 1,000 mark, so they're sort of mid-range.
So, I think they're the next one up for the Vortex. I can't remember what they are, but yeah, Vortex seem to be a very common answer when asked that question. So they are very, very good binocular and very well priced for what they are. So
yeah, well, it's hard to go past the warranty.
Yeah,
when you see guys that run over them with a truck, or I think someone shot them once or something. If you can provide them like the carcass, what's remaining of that scope or the binos, apparently they'll replace it.
Yeah,
look, that's amazing.
I've seen
for someone who's really rough on gear, that's amazing.
And because even it's secondhand gear, like if you sell something that warranty goes over, I seen someone the other day find a 50-year-old pair of Vortex at the bottom of the river, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna send them in. Got a brand new pair."
Jared, that is awesome.
It's nuts.
As far as other gear, I know you asked the question, so before I forget, what should you always take, or what would you not go without, or something like that? Gloves. So rolling into Menace State Forest for that hunt in April. It was night time. I spoke to a bloke driving out. It was his last day of the hunt. He just bagged a deer, shortly beforehand. He gave me some pointers, but wake up in the morning, it looked like beautiful, grassy, slopey land. Like, excellent. I have all the visibility in the world. Unbeknownst to me, till I started walking through it, it was chest height. It was lantana, blackberries, and thistles. So
great combination.
Yeah, that wasn't great, especially trying to carry the deer out at the end of it. and you got it all through your hands and stuff like that, take a nice pair of gloves.
What
Highly
about
recommend it.
what about camo? What are you running camo wise?
Yeah, so I still rock around in the Ozcam on occasions. Because I'm a bit of a tight ass, and again hard on gears. So, but I bought some Hunter's Element Veil camo, something to that effect. I think it's like a soft shell sort of thing. I think it did sustain some cuts from the thistles and stuff like that. Given I did go back and read the description afterwards because I was worried about warranty, and they do say wear a protective layer over top.
Yeah.
So my lightweight, could not argue whatsoever.
They have good
quality
patterns.
gear.
Good patterns for sure. A lot of my mates are running Hunter's Element. It's all great gear these days, pretty much anyway. And they all of those companies have camo at a budget for everyone. So whether you want the top range stuff or the bottom range stuff, even those little box packs that Hunter's Element, Huntec do, they're just Stony Creek do them as well.
Yeah, okay. Ridgeline, I think, is another one too.
Yep, definitely. So it's all good stuff there. So, what about boots?
Boots. I had a pair of, I want to say Scarpa GTX.
Yep.
So I think they're like a knockoff Lower GTX.
Yep.
Everyone raves about Lower.
Yep.
I bought it from it's like MacPack or Anaconda, or it was one of those places. Got it on a pretty decent sale, so I think it was $100 off or something like that. But can't fault it. Obviously boots, once you wear them in, that's probably the biggest issue. Sort of persevering through the blisters and the rubbing and all that sort of stuff. But they are awesome. Lightweight. I originally went out with steel cap boots. That wasn't a good time.
Yeah, it's not fun. I forgot a pair of hiking boots on a hunt once. It was a week-long trip and didn't realise until we're halfway to where we were going, like 8-hour drive, and we're 4 hours in. So we pulled into a local hardware store and I just grabbed a pair of steel caps and hunted in them the whole time. It was terrible.
It's funny, you don't think that with a little bit extra weight on your feet, for the sake of, what is it, half kilo or whatever it is, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
To your legs, to your knees, to your back, everything.
Oh, and it just
takes it out of you.
Because your feet are somewhat moving while you're going up hills and walking around. So hitting those steel caps constantly as you're going up or downhill, it just destroys your toes.
Yeah, yep.
So what about your top beginner tip to someone getting into hunting? What is your go-to top beginner tip?
Well, probably one of the first things I'd say, don't believe everything you read on social media is the first and foremost.
That's great.
So again, doing the R license training, you can after you complete a hunt, you've got to submit a harvest return. So it's just like a sort of little checklist to say, you put in numbers, how many animals you saw of a certain species, how many you took, how many days you hunted,
that's cool.
Different stuff like that. And that goes into a sheet. I can't remember the name of it, but basically it's just like a species report every quarter, so every 3 months. You can check that out on the DPI's website. So you can sort of gauge which forests are productive, which ones aren't.
That's awesome.
I sort of take any free information with a sort of pinch of salt, because sometimes I think people are just taking the piss. They're trying to scare people away from their honey hole, so they'll put no recordings there, and other ones are all ticked, and you sort of question if all those animals are there. So that, Facebook as well. Don't just take a single person's sort of opinion on the matter. Try to get consensus. Or a rough consensus.
Great. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, that's great. Yeah, the New South Wales system for R license is quite strange. Everything I know about it would be from the Hunters Campfire podcast with Mark and Ian. And they actually do some great breakdowns on hunting, like the particular forests that they hunt. So rather than keeping it to themselves, they say this is like, you have to scroll right down to some of their first podcasts, but this is where we go, this is how we hunt it, this is what you're going to expect, this is what time of day to go to certain spots and find certain bits and pieces. Like, it's really, really informative, that's awesome. Which is insane for hunters in general to tell you their spot and how to hunt it and what game you're going to face and what to expect.
Well, now's, I've read a few bits and pieces over the past, Meat Eater, for instance, talking about the good old days of hunting. And some of the consensus seems to be that now's the good old days of hunting. Because when you think about your level of access to information, right? So you've got guys like yourself throwing out a podcast, informative, everything's at your fingertips. You know, you don't need to run into a cocky at the pub who just happens to tell you where he saw a deer last week. You know what I mean? And there's so much information. You've got guys like Profty from Aussie Bush Harvest. You know, like we do a little bit of content, more to around the firearms cleaning and, you know, bits and pieces like that. There's so much information out there. Just take your time to do the research.
Yeah, definitely.
You can learn a lot from sitting at home in front of a computer.
Yeah,
it's not the be all and end all, and don't expect someone to spoon feed the information is a big one, because you'll hear about it on social media. You get a lot of strong opinions that aren't very supportive of that approach, but
that's just social media in all aspects, though, unfortunately. But you know,
yeah.
But some people do just ask the stupidest questions. If you don't know about the search bar in a group, look for the search bar, and whatever you're going to ask first, search it and then go through those related posts. And if it still hasn't answered it for you, then ask it. That's probably my biggest tip for finding out stuff on the Facebook groups.
And as an extension of that, learn how to save posts and put them in different folders.
Yeah.
Because you will retain so much information, or the good old screenshot, but I am terrible at organising my phone, the little screenshots. So
that's me, man. I'll be like, oh, I screenshotted something 6 months ago. Hang on, I need to go 6 months ago. Okay, that's around it. There it is.
Yeah. You stumble back across it and you're like, what was the context? Like, why did I screenshot this? It doesn't make sense.
Oh, it happens all the time. What would your top 5 items be for a beginner getting into hunting? Whether it's rifle or bow hunting, either or.
I definitely say, look, I do understand that buy once, cry once sort of thing in terms of buying quality. You know, I wouldn't suggest that you go and buy the cheapest gear you can get. There are some good deals to be had online, obviously, different websites, not necessarily my own. Bows, I'd be careful about. As you know, secondhand bows can be hit and miss, especially if they've got any cracks or damage to the limbs, if they're being derailed or anything like that. Top 5 gear. Good boots. I mean, that's pretty common. 100%. I'm sure everyone says that. Good optics. So whatever that is to you, whether it's binos, monocular, spotting scope, otherwise. Yeah. Just trying to think. Yeah, sort of got me stumped. I haven't really thought too far ahead for that one. Good knives would be another one.
What knives do you run?
Sharp knives. Ooh.
Any brands in particular you run? Any type, styles? Are they fixed blades? Are they disposable blades?
I want to get a Havalon disposable blade knife. I've got a mate swears by it. And he's a pretty productive guy when it comes to hunting. Has success.
So I've got the not the Garmin. Why am I thinking Garmin? What's the company that Gerber, the Gerber equivalent of the Havalon, and that's great. You can get them at Anaconda and stuff. So if the Havalon's out of your budget, have a look at the Gerber for sure.
I'll have to check that out actually. For small game, I'll give some advice on that. So I didn't touch on before about my small game hunting and sort of how we got to that. We got a bit off track.
Yeah, no, all cool.
Buy a Opinel, Opinel, number 8 knife. Costs like $20-$25. I process more rabbits to that bloody thing than I can count. Razor sharp, especially the carbon ones. After you clean it, because it's carbon, it will rust. So make sure you oil it or clean it and oil it. Those things are amazing. Just razor sharp.
Yeah, they're a mushroom hunters and foragers' best friend. They are. If you're on any of the foraging pages, every man and his dog have them.
Well, that's where I stumbled across them in the first place. Just Google knife brands and stuff like that. And it was like a mushroom pickers from England or something like that. I was like, what the hell is this thing, a French knife? And then, sure enough, awesome.
Yeah. I actually used to sell them at one of the camping stores that I went to. I regret not buying a few when I was working there at staff price.
Yeah, I bet. Probably I'll go safety route. An EPIRB.
Yeah.
Be a good one.
Apart from me, you're the first person on this podcast that has gone down that route, which is quite good.
I'm qualified in safety stuff too. I had a consulting business at one point. which COVID sort of knocked on the head, unfortunately. But so I sort of do dabble in the safety aspects. I've had some pretty dicey experiences too, in terms of running across brown snakes and stuff like that as well. So some of those things, it's just dumb luck. You don't step on them or step across them.
Yep, been there.
Just for safety. Look, even sort of recently, we helped out. It would have been a couple of months ago for a couple of dogs that got lost in the bush. But in that same region, people have been lost down the Central Coast. So it's just one of those things. If you're going out hiking, you're not sure of the area, just take it. It costs. What does it cost actually? They're not too expensive.
They're a couple $100, and then you just have to keep renewing them online, re-registering them every 3 or 4 years, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. There's a good place in Bulahdelah, New South Wales, that sells them, sort of local to me. But they post them around the country. You can hire them too.
Yeah.
So if you're going away out west for a week, you know what I mean? You can hire it for a week. Dirt cheap.
And if you do have an EPIRB and you dispose of it, take it to a cop shop. Do not just throw it in the trash, because if that gets set off and you have emergency crews looking for you at a dump, or if a seagull pulls the tab or whatever, a rat, and that goes off, you're footed with a bill for not disposing it properly. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's actually a really good point. I've heard a few stories about that, and it's not good. Obviously, a waste of emergency resources and everything else, and quite a bit of concern about the person involved. So.
Exactly. Yeah, I've heard some stories, and it was drummed into us when selling them at BCF. To tell people.
So on the safety aspect, I'd say, depending on where you go, take a off-road capable vehicle with a winch.
Yeah.
So I got stuck a couple of years ago, bashing through one of my local forests, just opened up to bow hunting, and we're just scouting the day. I don't think I even had a bow in the car. And I went through this giant mud puddle and just bogged the whole thing all the way up to the sills. Not a great experience. I didn't pre-test whether the winch worked, so that was a gamble. Thankfully it did. Definitely take a winch if you can.
Yeah,
and plan your trip too. Yeah, tell people where you're going.
Yeah.
If I'm in a local forest with I've got Google Maps at reception, I'll just drop a pin where I am, send it to my flatmate. You know what I mean? At least she knows where I am at all times. If I get lost, phone runs out of battery, bitten by a snake, there's some sort of backup there, you know what I mean?
And just on the bog stuff, there's some great Facebook pages and groups on Facebook, obviously, that are all about, you get in the shit and you can't get out, post your location, there's not many places where you can't get some type of reception if you, stand on top of the car, climb a tree, something like that. But there's all these people that go out there and pull people out, whether it's a can of beer or whatever.
Yeah. But it's a small price to pay to get rescued, isn't it?
Definitely. On the safety side of things, first aid kits. What type of stuff you taking out with you?
That's a good question. Actually, I just bought some gear for a first aid kit a few days ago. So I had it previously. I started out, again, cheap entry-level way, snake bandages. Obviously know how to use them as well. I believe you can get ones that have got like a rectangle on there, and as you pull on it, it changes the shape to a square. And that's how you know you've got the right compression on your wound. So you're not over tightening, you're going to lose circulation and stuff like that. So then obviously do a first aid course too, so you know what's going on, how to use it. So I started off with that. I sort of custom made it, so it was a lot of stuff like allergy, like hay fever tablets, because I know me, especially this time of the year in spring, your wattle's out there, my nose runs like a tap. You don't want that to happen, coughing and sneezing, everything here from a mile away, scare everything away.
My wife and stepson are dying at the moment every time they go outside. It's just instant allergies.
So there's that. Obviously your Band-Aids, bandages, that sort of gear. Hydrolyte is a good one, actually.
Definitely.
That is definitely something I throw in the backpack.
Cool.
I did a hike with a mate a couple of years ago to Barrington Tops. And I knew it was a long hike. I didn't know it was 22.5 Ks over 2 days. And I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe the first 2 kilometers were 500 meters elevation, or something to that effect. Maybe the first 5 kilometers were 500 meters elevation. Corker Trail, if anyone knows it. So at the end of that, water doesn't cut it. You need a bit of what do they call it? All the salts and sugars and
The
all those bits and
glucose and
pieces.
stuff like that. Yeah. Even just a bag of
minerals.
jelly beans, or lollies or something, just in the bottom helps. A bit of sugar. Um,
Yeah, but that's something I learned on that trip was the power of food, to boost your morale. So if you're having a shit time out hunting, take a little bar of chocolate, take some muesli bars that have got that stuff in there.
yeah, 100%.
You might be, sitting in the rain miserable, but that'll perk you up. Take a jet boil on coffee,
Oh,
whatever.
coffee saves
that's
the
me
day
there.
so many times. Even noodles, man. Like I'll take my little spice mix out and some noodles and sit there just on a cold rainy day, sitting under a tree eating noodles. It's definitely a big morale booster. And sometimes just sitting there, because in Australia we walk around so much hunting, we're not waiting off a game trail like America. Sometimes just that sitting there while you're eating, something crosses you. The amount of times I'd be having noodles and then some goats or a deer or something walk past and put down my cup of noodles, draw back the bow, take a shot, finish my noodles.
Cheering.
But yeah, zombie apocalypse weapon. I know you're looking forward to this question.
Yeah, so I was thinking about the other day what I'd say, and I was sort of torn between two, and I think I made a decision. So it was torn between a pipe tomahawk, like the American Indians, something lightweight, quick, or I won't get the word right, a short sword, like the wakizashi, I think it is, Japanese samurai sword, the little ones. Because you got to consider your environment, right? Like, you're not walking across a beautiful open field with a spear or something like that. You're probably going to be in a city.
Yeah.
So you need something nimble, climbing upstairs. So yeah, probably the short sword.
Very nice, very nice. What about the tomahawk? You seen the new Predator movie where it's the Native Americans? You seen that?
I've seen the previews.
Oh, it's a killer movie, but she's got a tomahawk tied to a string, and she's like throwing it into the tree, pulling it out. Like, it's not practical, but like it looks fucking
God
cool.
of War style.
I don't play games, so.
Right. So I heard the Dragon Ball Z reference before, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, Dragon Ball Z references and Pokemon references, but yeah.
That's as far as it goes.
What have you forgotten on a hunting trip?
Gloves. As I said, I've forgotten so many silly things. So, again, what I was saying before, my early experiences when I started getting the hunting, it wasn't deer, it was like rabbits. Parents have got 6 acres just south of Port Macquarie. So it was forever chasing them with the bow first and foremost. And I wasn't the best shot. Obviously, my stalking skills were left a bit to be desired. So that escalated obviously to the rifle and a bit of trapping stuff as I sort of moved with it. But one thing I forgot was a magazine. Go to hunt. Always forgot the bolt. I used to take it out religiously. The bolts. I was led to believe you had to in New South Wales. Turns out that's incorrect. But the magazine was always out of the rifle. It's always empty anyway. But you get there and you're single shotting with a rifle that's got a hole in the guts because it's a box magazine. And 50% of the times you got to put the bullet in there and it falls out the bottom.
I've been there, man. I've been there. And touching on the don't always believe something you read on Facebook is the whole bolt thing, because it's just, some states are, my state you don't have to, like, you can leave the bolt in, and then some states we've gone down these rabbit holes before on the podcast where every state's different, so just make sure you don't go to Facebook for your advice. Go check the actual firearms legislations.
So on that too, obviously you can learn a lot from YouTube and that. Hunter education courses and that are pretty awesome. People like myself don't have to go to me specifically. Consensual New South Wales course. You can do the online course. There's a lot you can learn. But state by state differences. So caliber, I believe there's caliber differences for what you can target for different deer, say between New South Wales and Victoria. So always check those things and your transportation requirements.
From my understanding, New South Wales is just recommendations, isn't it? Mostly.
They say recommendations, but I wouldn't push it. That's just my opinion. I know what it's like to get a firearms license. I wouldn't risk it. And
then Victoria, it is law for those species. Where South Australia, we've got none. I think I think ADA might have recommendations, but other than that, there's nothing written in law. So
yeah, it's probably pretty likely. From what little I know about ADA, they seem pretty thorough.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, that's something to check out. Make sure that the calibers you're using are recommended.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
headshot with most things will drop most things if you're a good shot and you got a somewhat of a high powered rifle. So,
Yeah, yeah.
what's the most important item you take out with you hunting?
Um, I can say something. I don't know if it would be a bit of a how well received it would be. Honestly, it's just the information I've taken. It's not really an item itself. It's the research I put into it. It's the experiences I've had in the past. All that goes into it. That's far more important than any item I can bring.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not going to get too far if I leave the rifle at home, but yeah, and a lot of common sense too. Again from that safety aspect, we've had quite a few instances. I mean, I believe Victoria's had a few, New South Wales has had a few too, where there's been, you talk about negligent discharges or accidental discharges, as they're commonly known. It's just that common sense and the safety side of things. So, the safety is not just the don't point your gun at someone. It's if you're driving a car, 8 hours, take a rest break. Go get fuel, get a coffee, just relax.
No,
you shouldn't be in any hurry to get there. If it is, it's because you've poorly planned the situation. So,
been in both of those situations, so I can't comment there.
Take it with you. That's honestly just that, just research and experiences and that knowledge.
No, that's a really good answer. What about the most sketchy, dangerous thing that's happened to you out on a hunt?
It's been a few of them. Which is good. I'm somewhat accident prone. Again, very heavy handed, so I tend to break things. But I'll say two sketchiest things I've had. One was the brown snake. So Heaton State Forest down the road from me. Climbing through the mountains. It's sort of like steep drop off. Like, I don't know if they're granite. I'm not really a geologist, but steep sort of rock walls near the top of this hill. I'm sort of roaming through there, and it didn't even click with me. Snakes, you know what I mean? And it should have. And what do you know? Straight across my path, just a little brown snake sunbathing. It scared the shit out of me.
Not a fan of snakes then, or just the surprise?
If I can see him, yeah, just the surprise. Honestly, just the surprise. It was not great. The other one was one of my early hunts after I got my firearms license. I had the 30-30 with me. So with that, and obviously safety, it's up to people's perception, what they believe's true. Some people use cross-bolt safety sufficient. In a lever action, I don't trust them. It's my personal preference. I was always told to half cock with the safety through and obviously finger off a trigger. So I was walking through the bush, pretty steep mountains at, I think it's Pecolbin. And anyway, I lost my footing, slipped down the hill, and next thing I know, the rifle's pointing sort of at my my calf muscle. And I was lucky because my finger was near the trigger, wasn't on it, because I grabbed the rifle, instinctually was going to drop it. And, it could have been far worse if I didn't have all those safeties in place and a bit of dumb luck too.
It happens, man. It happens. You see it all the time, especially America, just because the firearm usage is so much. You see all these accidents happen where someone ends up shot, unfortunately. But it's good to have those measures in, especially bolt.
So that's another point about safety as well. Crossing fences, obviously not into people's private property unless you got permission.
Yeah.
But if you come between paddocks, make sure your firearm's unloaded. On the ground, pointed away from you.
Yeah.
I believe there was an incident in the Hunter Valley years ago. I don't want to talk out of turn. I don't know too much about it, but I believe it was a shotgun rested upright against either the post or the wire. Old mates obviously moved the wire going through it, and it's discharged. And I believe it was a fatality.
Yeah, wow.
So in situations like that, just if you can, leave it empty or do everything you can to mitigate that risk.
Yeah, Meat Eater had a good story on their latest audio book, and they just played it on the back of one of their episodes the other day about a guy out duck hunting. His mates didn't show up, and so he's like, all right, they're not coming. So he's jumped in the boat, put the shotgun, and he's like kicked off, and as he's kicked off, the shotguns fell and shot himself in the knee with his shotgun, and he had he almost died and come. So yeah, go back to that media episode, or go get their audio book and listen to those stories, because the stories they tell on them are freaking insane.
Yeah, I got to catch up on their podcast. Actually, I sort of let it slip a little bit.
Because I drive constantly, driving a truck, delivering plasterboard. I just podcast all day.
Yeah, there's some great content on there.
Oh,
it really is worthwhile.
They do, and you learn so much as well. And they go into so much of all the issues and topics that, you know, myself I like to hear, and myself as having a podcast I like to ask. So it's good to hear all those different perspectives from hunters from around the world. That's for sure.
Well, especially for golf myself, you know, if Oz Fishing Game could turn into something, ideally, even without the money side of things and the branding and support and stuff like that too, that's success.
Yeah.
To have that level of information, you know, from a collective of people to be able to give to new hunters, to existing hunters, you know what I mean? Whether it's conservation to change opinions, how-tos, you know, whether it's a video about rifles or scouting, for instance, you know, to have that in an Australian version would be amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the funniest thing that's happened to you while you've been out hunting or fishing?
Funniest thing? I've had like a lot of comedy of errors. There's one that I actually wrote a bit of a post about it, and whether it came across as funny as what it was just out prawning of a channel by myself. So, you know, closer aids to the hunting. And it was just everything would go wrong. So, you know, rods almost falling in, grabbing them, and the torch almost goes in. It's just that continual cycle of everything that can go wrong did. And you get really frustrated too, you know what I mean? You get the shit. So I'm sure everyone was watching me was just pissing themselves laughing. It got back to the boat ramp, and I used my winch to winch the boat on top of the roof. You know, the one time the boat slides off sideways and jumps in the water, and you're bailing water out of it.
Oh,
Bloody hell. So that 100% hands down would be that time. It's funny now that it's happened. You know, I've been through the other side of it, but ask me at the time, very different, different answer.
Just some Mr. Bean music playing in the background.
Yeah, 100%.
So, top 5 dream animals. Anywhere in the world, any like unlimited funds, what would you go chase?
You know what I'd love to do, and I probably die doing it? I was watching on a Facebook post a couple of years ago, just stumbled across it, and there was a dude that was delivering. There's a little French island apparently off the coast of Australia, so Western Australia, but further into that's the Indian Ocean, I believe. Sort of southwest from there. And it was big. It was either caribou or reindeer on there, but they're not like the normal ones you see, which are pretty large, obviously, as you can imagine. Monsters, absolute monsters. I'd love to do that, but I believe those ports are only open for a few days here and there per year. So to get picked up, like, it would be a massive logistical nightmare.
That I'm gonna have to research. I find some interesting shit doing it. I found out we had squirrels in Australia doing this. Like,
what?
Yeah.
Serious?
Yeah. So apparently there's like a small population in Western Australia of like these feral African squirrels, and there used to be some down Melbourne, and yeah, crazy.
I was not aware of that.
Nah, neither. Because squirrels are something I've always wanted to go hunt. So
yeah.
So there's number 1, caribou. I'm gonna have to research that. That sounds badass.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. I can't remember the name of the island, but if I stumble across it, yeah, I'll flick you a message anyway.
I know what I'll be doing when I go to bed. I'll be looking for that.
Yeah, it'd be there somewhere. So that'd be number 1. There's a lot of good hunts out there. Look, we could go down the rabbit hole of talking about, you know, African big game stuff, because that's obviously an area that a lot of people don't understand in terms of the food going back to a lot of the tribes, the money, you know, for water and infrastructure and stuff like that. That stuff doesn't necessarily interest me too much. The big crocodiles there, I think it was I can't think of the guy's name.
Jim Shockey.
Jim Shockey? Yeah. Giant crocodiles.
Nile crocs. They feed on villages. You can get the permits to go hunt them to help out the villages. That was intense. Yeah, that
was a really intense episode.
Oh man, Jim Shockey's stuff is just amazing. It's incredible. He has an interesting way of going about stuff.
Yeah, he had a really cool video, really informative about whales in Alaska. I believe it was too. Yeah, it's worthwhile watching.
Yeah, that whole
Um,
family is just incredible. I was just before we jumped online, I was reading Eva's post about I think it might have been a mule deer that she just took today. So
yeah,
incredible hunting family.
that's awesome. So put crocodiles probably number two. Um, beyond that, I think I put this five, so we'll skip ahead a little bit, and I'll go iguanas,
Yeah,
like Miami and those places. Apparently they're nuts. I was watching that guy. What do they call him? The snake catcher or the something like that?
yeah, no, not sure that one. But
Um,
me and my boys sit down. Like that's one of our goal family trips is heading over to my like Florida and go shoot iguanas with air rifles and blowpipes and the
Yeah,
bows and stuff.
yeah, they've got like massive pythons there.
Yeah.
It'd be a really cool like environment to go check out. So I'll stick that at five, and we'll go three and four. Look, I probably have to stick whitetail in there, just for that whole, to get into the American culture side of things of hunting,
They are cool.
because that's something I love. We've got a very different culture here with hunting in Australia compared to America,
So is it
and I love.
American
So-
whitetail you'd want to go for? Because there's a couple of small populations outside of America. So there's a population in New Zealand, and then I believe Denmark might have a population of whitetail as well.
Yeah, I probably do the American thing for the experience.
Yeah.
But having said that, being realistic, I'd likely get more. If I can get the words out, I would be more likely to get the opportunity to go to New Zealand.
Yeah.
I've seen that they've got all sorts of deer down there, don't they?
Yeah, they've got about 7 species. So they have whitetail, wapiti, elk,
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking. Yeah,
red deer. They've got sambar, rusa, sika, fallow, red. So yeah, about seven or 8 species.
yeah, I definitely love the elk. Although I can't pronounce it. Watapi or
Wapiti.
yeah.
So that's
that
just
one.
it's something that frustrates me a lot. It's the Native American word for elk,
Okay.
but everyone in Australia refers to wapiti as like an elk red deer hybrid. So whenever you hear
okay.
wapiti in South Australia, or in Australia, sorry, or New Zealand, that's normally what people were referring to. But it's if you hear elk, they're meaning elk. Wapiti, they're meaning elk. So
Yeah, a big elk would be another one. With a close six being hog deer
yeah,
down in Victoria.
yeah, cool. Yeah,
That'd be awesome.
hog deer. I got my band, my little patches here somewhere. I got about 4 or 5 of them now.
Yeah, I forgot to apply for it this year.
Oh,
Completely missed it. Had it screenshotted, as I said, and they went by the wayside and
Has it closed
just
yet?
forgot.
I don't think it's.
I don't know. I
I
thought
don't-
it had, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm going to jump on it today.
I think it's late October it closes.
Oh, well, I have to check that out. I hope I don't miss it.
Yeah.
I got really excited.
The thing is, I've got mine for next year, but next year I'm going to New Zealand for my 30th. So
Wow.
I hope I don't get the hog deer when I'm planning to go chase tar and chamois, because that would be a very, very tough decision.
Yeah, well, they were the other ones I was going to say as well.
Yeah.
That would be an absolutely amazing experience. I was watching Meat Eater years ago when
Yeah.
it was Rinella and Remy,
Yeah,
I think, were there.
where he goes crosses the river.
Yeah, it's dicey, yeah.
Oh, dude, it's very dicey, especially from someone with a safety background such as yourself. It's not something I'd put myself in, let alone.
Safety people tend to be the loosest people out there, so that's what the concern is.
I don't know.
We should know better. We just don't always
I-
listen.
I don't know. My wife's a health and safety manager, so
Okay.
she's definitely not reckless in any sense of the word.
There you go. I might be the exception to the rule.
So, what's your favorite thing to cook with hunted or caught meat or food?
I have a soft spot for seafood, sort of growing up around it. I have a lot of family that were commercial fishermen too.
Yeah.
So probably prawns.
Yeah, cool.
Sort of the fond memories of that too is, as a kid, spending time at my uncle's place, and they go prawning at rivers commercially. So you're spending a lot of time there in the boat, doing that sort of stuff. I was never really fussed on seafood as a kid, but as I've gotten older, especially catching it yourself, you got that satisfaction too. I just love going out prawning.
Yeah. I haven't got to experience that yet. We don't really have prawns down here. You get a few far between, but yeah.
You'll have to come up sometime. We'll get teed up.
Definitely. My great grandfather actually was from Port Mac.
Oh wow!
Unfortunately, he passed away at the start of this year. But I was COVID got in the way of doing a trip up there and visiting him, and then squeezing a deer hunt in. So having someone up that way will help.
Yeah, 100%. We'll tee it up. I stumbled across an awesome Jamaican curry prawn recipe. It's got a punch to it. Quite a few habaneros in there, but just amazing. Absolutely amazing.
You'll have to send that recipe through, and I'll just go buy some prawns to try that one.
I think it's on the website.
Yeah, cool.
The hardest thing for me, like I don't really have private access anymore. The rabbits we had at my parents' place, because I was big on cooking them, I sort of shot them all out. And with the new housing estates going in around them, they've got a big patch of a conservation area at the backyard, so obviously you can't go in there. But with the housing estates going around the outskirts of that, there's probably little likelihood to none of ever repopulating that area.
Yeah.
Which is good for my dad because he's diabetic and his leg's stuffed.
Yeah.
So if he would have fallen in a hole, he'd be screwed for the recovery time. But obviously bad in a sense that my selfish desire to hunt doesn't get fulfilled.
There's a lot of that when it comes to hunting in Australia, as we were discussing earlier, with that selfishness of wanting to hunt and have these animals on the landscape to getting rid of them for conservation purposes. Yeah,
100%. Well, deer was amazing. Like my first experiences this year, sort of getting a deer in April. So the first thing I cooked was on the back of the ute with jet boil. It was horrible because I ruined it.
Oh no!
You picked a wrong chewy cut of meat. All I had was like a little bottle of oil. Smashed that in there. I had little packets of herbs, which had probably long since expired. Just let it rip, threw them all in there, and it tastes like garbage. And I've gone, what have I done here?
Next time,
I went home.
Go hard. Yeah, choose hard because it's one of the tenderest bits to cook in a situation like that.
Yeah, I've still got that in my freezer actually. I've got a little bit of meat left, but the next meal I made was amazing. I took the neck roast and made I think it was a Berbergeon. I'm probably bastardizing the French of that, but just red wine based, fragrant with herbs and stuff like that. Cool. It's amazing. You get a little cheap Kmart pie maker, throw the leftovers in that.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Perfect.
So good.
Sounds good. Yeah, venison's a tough one because if you have a bad experience on it first, that's people's first experience on it and they're turned off by it. But most of the time it's pretty good. And heart, it doesn't last that well in the freezer, so try use that up first. But it will still be all right. Chili, garlic makes it for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's actually one article that I'm in the process of writing. It's one of those long-term ones that sort of sits in the back burner, which is like the proper process of freezing and storing like every game meat and fish that you can think of. So I think that's something that people can screw up quite a bit too.
Yeah.
Is obviously the handling of the animal when you first take it, storage, and especially the bagging and freezing process, whatever method you choose to use.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where I think the meat eater one of the guide wrap and the butcher's paper, especially because I know my freezer, everyone's rough as guts, especially trying to find the ice cream and all that stuff. You know what I mean? They bashing boxes and stuff around the freezer and, things can get ripped. So obviously you don't want to waste your meat. One
thing I'm very jealous of, New Zealand does it and America does it. So the episode that's just come out with Evan, he just shot a deer a couple of days after we podcasted, and he's got spina bifida, so he's bound to a wheelchair and crutches, and he can just take his meat into a butcher's, and they butcher it all up for him, turn it into summer sausages, and they do it all. He pays a certain price per pound of what he wants, and
wow, that's awesome.
It would be very beneficial here, I reckon.
Well, that's what I was going to ask with regards to New Zealand. So when you take an animal, and actually another animal I'd like to hunt too was the Canadian geese.
Yeah.
So New Zealand and Tassie and Victoria, Phillip Island.
Yep.
There's a lot there. But I believe New Zealand, with quarantine, you can't bring avian products back over.
Yeah,
Bird flu or something like that.
yeah. I don't know too much about that. I know with deer and maybe like chamois and tar, you can bring up to 10 kilos of frozen meat back to Australia.
Are you forced to get a butcher to bag it? Because I thought that was the thing for it.
I'm
They have
not.
to stamp it or something like that. And
I can't really talk
box.
on that, so
Yeah, fair
I'm
enough.
not 100% sure. I know Cody and I did speak about it briefly on the podcast with him, possibly.
Yep.
It might have been a private chat. I can't remember, but
Yeah, check that out before you go over, man.
yeah,
I remember reading something ages ago, and again, it could be just COVID. Not COVID. Wrong word. It's just with the tongue. It could be just Facebook sort of,
yeah, true.
stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't even know that we could bring, like, I've been to New Zealand before chasing Seeker. It would have been great to know that I could have brought some of that back because Seeker was amazing eating.
Well,
I didn't get to shoot one, but I got to eat one. So,
It's not all bad then.
So how do you see the public views on hunting and hunters?
Ooh. Look, I think it's dramatized as everything in the media. You know, what I
Yeah.
mean, they've always got an agenda. And let's be honest, for the most part, the government and everyone else, they don't like firearms. And I understand that to some extent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's been some horrible tragedies all around the world, but not just firearms. You know, there's been many recently with knives in New Zealand, for instance.
Yeah.
So I think it's blown out of proportion. And as the media likes to do, they like to hype people up, get that little clickbait going. So,
It's funny that, just quickly while you're on that, there's a couple of days ago, before we've recorded this podcast, there was that massacre in Thailand at the childcare center or whatever it was, with 32
Yep.
people and 22 kids. Just, it's amazing how that hasn't had barely any media coverage, where if it was 3 or 4 people in the States, it would be front page news over here. Like, it's
yeah. Well,
a
I think
crazy one.
the way I describe it, and you obviously got to walk a fine line if you're a hunting club and stuff like that too. I encourage everyone to follow the law. I don't agree with some of it.
Yeah.
And I would like myself and others to advocate to change some of it. By all
Firearm
means,
Owners United.
Yeah, exactly right. By all means, have checks and balances in place. You know, there is a great need for, mental health checks. I've got no problems with that. But we go overboard. You know, appearance laws, for instance.
Oh,
I was only thinking today, like, if I were to talk to a politician, say our transport minister,
Yeah.
who was the ex-police minister, conveniently, and say, hey, I want you to ban all red cars. You
Yeah.
know, everyone knows they go faster. They intimidate people. They could use those cars to text and drive, drink and drive, whatever the case is, speed in school zones. And they think I was a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? So by that same association, if you've got a rifle, whether it's a Remington 700 or one of the offshoots,
Yeah.
the copies of that, just because it's got a black chassis on it, all of a sudden it's scary, it's tactical.
yeah.
It doesn't make sense, nonsensical.
That's probably the best way I've heard that described, and I'm going to steal that from now on. So anyone listening to the podcast, you're probably going to hear that in the future, speaking to future guests.
That's good. Take it. Go for it. Look, I considered sending that email off today. I've got it sitting there pending. I don't know. See how I feel. I get a bit of a shine on one day, you know what I mean? A few beers, we'll see if it gets sent off.
It's like suppressors, man. Like, it blows my
Yeah.
mind that they're not illegal, but they're not allowed. Like, it's so stupid. Just because that, like, you look at most European countries, they have to have suppressors. In New Zealand, if you
Yeah.
shoot without a suppressor, you're almost frowned upon.
Wow.
And
Okay.
just
Look,
for that-
that's the thing, I guess, with the media as well. We sort of pick and choose what issues we want to run with, and we hide the things that are conveniently, counter to what we're trying to achieve. As in the media themselves or
Yeah,
the
yeah,
government, whoever's
100%.
running it. But suppressors are a big one. You know, unfortunately, I mean, I grew up on bad Hollywood movies. You know, a shitload of video games like your Call of Duties, all those sort of things. And look, enjoyable. You know, you get entertainment value out of it. But I am smart enough to understand that It's not John Wick walking through an airport with a gun and under his arm clicking it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make that click sound.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. But it's all, I guess, shrouded in fear and emotion and not common sense. And back on that, that's the big thing with hunting culture, the cancel culture, is a lot of it's emotion based.
Yeah.
Whether you saw my post about the octopus, the Animal Justice Party were critiquing fishing people.
I did see this post, yes.
Yeah, bashing an octopus to death. And the only reason I know about it is through Meat Eater or Kimmy Werner.
Yeah.
I believe it was through them. And it was the process of, obviously you dispatch the octopus straight away, because if you don't, it's
Biting
a handful.
on the head.
You can't hold on to the bloody thing, and they're obviously very strong creatures too. So they usually bite it, between the eyes where the brain is, and it will die straight away, quick, painless, no issues. You get back to shore, and obviously octopus, calamari, a lot of that stuff can be chewy. So what they do is they break up the muscle fibers or whatever it is to soften it by beating against rocks or a hard surface.
Yeah.
Or I believe in the Meat Eater show, she had it in a washing machine or a dryer or something like that. She would tumble to break it up and make it easy. It's like the lazy, awesomely intelligent way of doing it. So a lot of that stuff is based on emotion though, because people don't get the underlying information, that education.
Exactly.
That's the biggest issue I think we face is, misinformation's a key word these days, and I think it should apply to all things.
So going off that, how would you change the public views on hunting and hunters?
So there's a few things I can touch on here. This is something I'm really sort of passionate about. I've had this conversation with a few people now. First and foremost, you see organisations like Blood Origins, which we talked about earlier. I don't know if it was in the podcast or we definitely talked about it before we clicked record.
I think we touched both times, before and after. So
yeah. So those guys, Meat Eater, we really need to drive home that positive side of hunting. That's not, again, people are under the false impression that it's killing. And I remember someone said on social media once, and I love the way it was described. It was if the object, like if the sheer enjoyment was simply the act of killing, then no one would be employed by an abattoir, and the line would be out the door and around the corner. People volunteering for free. You know what I mean?
That's a good way of putting it, for sure. Because hunting, death is a part of it, but it's not why we're doing it. So it has many, many aspects.
Yeah. There's so many layers to it. You can touch on culture, whether it's Aboriginal culture, Native American, even colonial sort of white culture.
I was just about to
it's all ingrained in it. And that's one of my biggest gripes with the way we approach things. And that's what I said in the octopus thing. Which is like, we talk so much about how much culture has been eroded, and I'm not countering that. We have lost a lot of culture from different indigenous communities, be it Hawaiians, Native Americans, or otherwise. But why are we not encouraging people to partake in those activities?
Yeah. To
get that understanding and that appreciation for that culture. And some of that's through food, through hunting, fishing.
Exactly.
Especially in Pacific Islands nations, fishing. You know what I mean?
That's been one of my points with this whole bow hunting ban in South Australia on the horizon, is that, if it was Indigenous people, it doesn't cause as much issue, and the government tends to side with it. Whether it's, we've had a case here in South Australia of a Indigenous cop beating a wombat to death with a stone. It caused a bit of public uproar, but not, they're like, oh, it's Indigenous practices, rah rah rah, and cultural things. Where hunting with a bow is cultural. How long's the bow been around for? There's evidence we've been using it for at least 5,000 years, and some evidence dating back even earlier than that. Like, insanely.
Find me one culture that was not based around the consumption of meat.
Yeah, exactly.
Throughout the world, it doesn't exist.
So why is it okay for one cultural group of humans to hunt, but because we're white and come from probably like an Anglo-Saxon background and
Yeah.
been farming for a couple of 100 years, where we've
Yeah.
been hunting for thousands and thousands of years, and it's not okay because we took that 200 years, couple hundred years off farming. So it's
Yeah, I'm very much in agreement with what you said. That's it. We should not value one person's culture over another,
exactly,
based purely off whether it's the color of your skin, your chosen god, whatever it is.
exactly,
It,
and
it should be appreciated much the same, or at the very least not cancelled. On a basis of preference. You know what I mean?
and it's a tough
Like-
subject to talk about too, because if you're bringing it up and it's like you're being insensitive, like people will say that I'm being insensitive to someone else's culture for bringing it up, like, but hunting to me is my blood. That's
Yep.
everything I know and do now is because of hunting.
Yep.
And to try and threaten to take bow hunting away from me, that's
Yep.
it's a passion, it's a love, it's a part of me, like
Well, it's a lifestyle too.
exactly.
You know what I mean? And it's you've demonstrated that with teaching a young fella to shoot a bow.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you're the first generation or the 100th or the 5,000 if I get the words out. It means something to you and your family.
exactly.
And you should be able to continue on that, provided it's not hurting anyone. And obviously, the critique is obviously, oh, it's hurting the animal, and that's where it gets sideways. But as you said before, nature's brutal. There was some great, and by great I mean it was pretty. What word do I use? Pretty violent imagery on social media. There's a few accounts on Instagram which were like brutal animals or something like that, and they ended up getting shut down. But it was people, I assume it was a hunter, who knows, that was showing photos and videos of like different animals eating, surviving. So it might have been an eagle picking up a fox.
So Nature is
obviously-
Metal is one of those
Oh
accounts.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
That was one of them. Yeah. So it was like, it might be an eagle picking up a fox, and obviously its talons have torn it to pieces, and it's got guts hanging out and stuff like that. And you know what? It's confronting, and it is graphic, and I understand some people might be upset, but you need to accept and understand the fact this is nature.
Exactly.
People aren't immune from that because, I mean, look at Ukraine and Russia right now.
Yeah.
We haven't changed one bit, you know what I mean? We're still the guys running around with sticks. It's just our sticks go bang instead of, flick
Yeah.
for a bow. So, look, there are ways to change it. And sort of what I like to touch on, obviously the Bite Origins thing is getting our stories out there, not only what we do, but why. The dude, Steve Jobs or whatever from Apple said it, it's not what you do or what you sell, it's why you do it. So is it culture? Is it food? You might have someone from a low income housing family and they might have grown up and the only source of food they had in the house was that elk or that kangaroo or that rabbit, especially during the Great Depression. Prime example in the 20s and 30s. They maybe don't like rabbit now because they're sort of jaded by it because I ate so many of them, but it's still an important factor to what they did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they understand that. I mean, the story of rabbit, we had 2 dozen in Victoria, and in 30 years they got to New South Wales border, and 40 or so years after that, we had like 1 billion of them,
Yeah. It's
like 1.2 billion. It's phenomenal.
it's an insane story. I don't even think it was 2 dozen. I think it was less than that. I think it was like 12 or just a very, very low number, but they bred like rabbits. They did what they do best.
And that's where, when they talk about not harming animals, well, you're saying that we can't eat them, right? And to me, like Ranella talks about with I think it was the Alaskans and the bear skull, polar bear skull, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Where you put it at your wall, and it's not a trophy in a sense, it's honoring the animal. That animal will watch the family and say, if a guy had to kill me, I'm glad it was this guy.
Yeah.
They're an honorable family and hardworking and all those things. So, yeah, like if we leave the animals unchecked, what happens? We have a rabbit issue. We have a cane toad issue. We have all these different animals, and you can't catch them all and de-sex them. I mean, that's what they wanted the Brumbies at Singleton Army Base,
Yeah.
or controversial Kosciuszko. The same thing. Oh, we'll just catch them and de-sex them. Okay, well, they're still destroying the environment. Okay, we'll put them on a farm. Well, whose farm? Your farm?
Yeah.
Are you paying to feed them? All those cows that we're telling you can't eat anymore, for instance, a little bit off topic, but still about food consumption. Well, the farmer can't eat them or cut them up and sell them anymore. who's going to feed him? He's got no resources anymore because you took away his livelihood.
Yeah.
So are you, your cafe in Merriweather sipping your soy latte, are you foot the bill to feed these animals? Are you coming out every morning to milk them so they don't get issues with their the body?
It's
a bit of a rant, but it fires me up, that shit.
It's a rabbit hole, man. Especially with that whole vegan side of stuff and anti-hunting activists, like to produce all of their foods.
Yeah.
We're the ones that have to go out there, that the farmers get out there to kill all the pests so that they can have their soy lattes and their...
Yeah. Well, Ted Nugent said it really well, and I think Yellowstone took a version of that for their show, talking about, the moles and the voles and the rabbits and the, snakes and insects and stuff like that. But it's true. Everyone, and I was only talking to my flatmate about it the other day, no one goes through life and does not impact anything, especially animals.
Yeah,
whether it's the bugs in your windshield. There used to be that big sign that was a billboard, I think somewhere in America, draw the line. Well, what's appropriate to eat? So you got your cow and your pig and your chicken. You got a dog and a horse and a rabbit, and obviously people draw a line pretty easily.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for me.
Yeah, and then you've got like another line. It's like apocalypse.
Yeah,
it's like the cat. Obviously, there's a bit of humor in that too, but that's the thing they never do. Draw the line.
Yeah.
So I've always said that if the antis, the animal justice crowd, truly wanted to make an impact to assist animals, stop them from suffering and all those bits and pieces, where do you start? Well, in my mind, you start from the most important issue first, right? The most impactful in a negative sense. So that would be maybe 1080 bait in the forest, right? They love that shit. They sprinkle like bloody sugar on the cornflakes. So 1080 bait, I think even hunters, we can all sort of agree, maybe not farmers, and I understand why, but most of us agree that it's a pretty horrible way to die. You watch videos from New Zealand, and they're frothing at the mouth for 48 hours, whatever it is, and it's disgusting.
Banned in the States, I'm pretty sure. Like, that's how, for something to be banned in the States, it's bad.
Yeah. So as you work your way through what's bad, I'm sure, 8 or 9 down, you get to hunting and fishing. Yeah, sure, knock that off the list. But keep going down in terms of severity, and it gets to a point where you've got no lights on your house, you're not driving a car, you're not working. What are you doing? You're tending a garden, well, you better not spray chemicals. If you're pouring water into that, what about the worms? You just drown the worms.
And where are you getting that water from?
Well, there's always different things too. So it's at what point does an animal not become important to you? Because different people like Rogan and that talked about it. Is it when it's not furry with big eyes anymore? Like, Bambi or, I don't know, whatever the horse equivalent is, but...
Spirit.
Yeah, exactly right.
But Ranella makes one of the best arguments in one of his book signings. It's an older video of a vegan sitting out in the crowd. And he's like, I care about the animal as a whole. I want these animals on the landscape. And he goes, you care about the animal as an individual. You're seeing it as an individual being. You're not looking at the animal as a whole. Where I know more about these animals as a whole than you ever will. I know everything about them, where you only want to know and care about the individual animal itself. Yeah. And just that point he makes is incredible.
And it's so true too. I just lost my chain of thought for a second. Also, population control for animals, right? So we talk about, well, we're too good to eat them now. Or in case we have a rabbit, blown up population or cane toads, whatever it is, what do we do with them? We've got to kill them.
Poison, disease.
So again, they can understand and they fully accept, because the go-to response is always, oh, what about humans? Our population's out of control. We're ever expanding, housing estates. It's got a good point. Not that I condone that with people, but I query why they can accept it when it comes to humans. But when it comes to animals, they hit the brakes, put the blinders on.
Yeah.
They cannot accept the fact that animal populations get out of control. Because an area of land can only sustain a finite number of animals, a finite population. That's due to food, water, everything else.
And then introduce species into the mix, and it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, so back on topic. Sorry, man.
All good.
The other point I was going to make is in terms of, and the fishing crowd does it really, really well. that's what I was sort of talking to before we started recording, was charitable efforts. There are obviously some great hunting charities out there. Field and Game Australia, a lot of the duck ones to restore habitats, especially down your end of the world, South Australia, Victoria.
Yeah.
We need to do more of that.
100%.
And it shouldn't be encouraged. It almost leaning towards forced.
Yeah.
As a community that's sort of, hey, mate, pull your finger out, chuck some money in. Awesome effort. Throw some time in.
Definitely. Ozfish on the fishing side do incredible work for that.
Yeah. What's funny you talk about them. So I did a tree planting day with them months ago, but I connected with them at a fishing event a few months now about artificial reefs.
Yeah.
So our lake, Macquarie, without going too deep into it, issues at the moment with fish kills. There's been a few of them. I could see why a lot of people would accuse the power plant nearby with water runoff and stuff like that. I won't make a direct accusation so I don't get sued, although I tend to believe it myself. But anyway, as with all things, overfishing and stuff like that, obviously there was commercial fishing in there a long time ago. We've sort of fucked our rivers, as we've done the same with the land. So we need to get people involved. And I think the fishing community is starting to turn, not that they really had as bad a negative stigma against them, but they're really improving things by Ozfish Unlimited.
Exactly.
A national organisation doing artificial reef, mangrove plantations, tree plantations and swamplands and stuff like that.
Stocking.
They're really
yeah.
amazing things. Oyster reefs, that's the big one I want to do, push with them, is oyster reefs in the lake, because 83% of the world's oyster reefs are gone.
Yeah.
So obviously oysters grow on oysters. That's food for fish like your bream and stuff like that. Obviously they filter out a lot of the water. So a lot of the contaminants from, we had a lead smelter in Lake Macquarie or near it. We have the power plant, all that crap, the heavy metals come into the river.
Yeah.
All that gets sucked up by bivalves, so your oysters or your shellfish, and obviously your crabs and stuff like that too. So I don't know what the hunting equivalent is. Maybe tree planting, stuff like that. It's a good start. Rubbish pickup is a good one. Got up Australia Day we did.
Yeah,
Stuff like that.
Like we discussed before the podcast, something, if they could take the GST off of all the hunting and fishing stuff and then put like a Pittman Robertson, Dingle Johnson type thing where all that money that was for GST goes straight to hunting, fishing, and we had like an actual game authority that managed those funds, and it would be incredible. But unfortunately, I don't see something like that happening anytime soon.
Yeah, look, and the concern is that it might get exploited by the government too. Bureaucracy for the sake of bureaucracy. So that money goes into, because I believe the way it's structured, and I'm not too caught up with it, they go to specified agencies.
Yeah.
They don't spend it within a certain time, then it filters down.
Yeah.
So where it's like Wild Turkey or Rocky Mountain Elk, whatever those agencies are. But,
yeah, they've got lots of them. Yep.
I think it's a great idea. I would never suggest bringing a tax system into Australia, although I like the concept in America. I understand why it's there. There's so many people, so many hunters. I really think we need to pull our finger out and either start charities or encourage it. Not just local. Local's great, but it needs to be done on a large scale basis, and
Definitely.
It needs to be shown in the media. So that I found this with business, trying to have the website as a bit of a business for the classifieds thing.
Yeah.
Obviously the hunting club things too. It's hard enough these days to put a post up, whether it's a video, like an educational video. I'm sure you see it yourself with podcasts. Anything with the word hunting, rifle, whatever it is, goes in there. And you get shadow banning,
Yeah.
you get post flagged and removed, which has been a thing myself and a few other people the last couple of days. And your reach plummets. So to like and share things is a huge aid to us. To undertake these environmental acts to restore habitat, I think that'll bring the average uncaring person into line with us. We're achieving outcomes that the greenies say they care about, environmental restoration, climate change, all those things. If we can do them and really spread that image between ourselves, whether it's social media or otherwise, what incentive is there to cancel hunting?
Exactly. No, you made a very good point there. That's for sure. So What is hunting to you?
It's a good question. There's a lot of things I could touch on. Obviously, I mentioned some of the past with family and stuff like that too. My pop, he died at a younger age, so I never really had that connection with him. But hunting, someone I definitely looked up to. Just a tough old son of a bitch. You know what I mean? Hard worker. You look up to that. I think a lot of kids, especially young boys, will see those men and look up to them and want to aspire to be that person. So for hunting for that, with my uncle, you see these acts and the importance to them, whether it's food for the family, especially the fishing side of things, it's incredibly important. The mental health aspect you've touched on before, for me, I've lost a brother and I've lost a friend to suicide.
Yeah.
So mental health for me is incredibly important. You know what I mean? There's a great thing, the Overwatch Project in America. I don't know if you've seen me post. Amazing thing. So it talks about firearms and mental health, more so for veterans, but it's being released into the general community for firearms ownership. So basically, this organization trains people in mental health and firearm safety. So to veterans, their friends, family, community members. And the whole idea is basically to help people in times of a mental health crisis. So let's say it's myself and you. I've got this training. I approach you. Hey, man, if I'm ever in a mental health crisis, I'm going through issues, can you please ensure that you safeguard my firearms? Yeah. Temporarily, it's not the idea of a permanent ban or a permanent removal until I get some help. The help I need, I level myself out, and then by all means, get them back. Then obviously you agree, friends, nice thing to do. Then you ask the same, hey, if you're ever in that situation, can you do the same for me? Obviously, the laws in Australia need to be shifted for that, which pisses me off because it's such a great idea. But the idea is that if you or I are ever in a situation where we're in a mental health crisis, fucking meltdown. I don't know about yourself, but I've had situations like I had that for myself, especially with losing friends and family.
Yeah.
You get some pretty fucking dark days.
Yeah.
So the idea is that you roll up to help me and you're like, hey man, remember that conversation we had? Let me just take those firearms off you, man. Go get you some help. It's short term. So no worries. You're not the big bad wolf like the police knocking on the door saying, hey, give me this. Too bad.
Yeah, that's the good thing about South Australia. I'm not sure among other states, but you can do a written, I think it's about 30 days written, have someone else's firearms. So that's one safeguard for that. But, it's something that's been brought up on this podcast before and heard other people talking about it. You see it regular Facebook posts. If I go to my doctor and say I'm battling depression, are they going to take my firearms license? People don't want to go admit they have these, whether it's suicidal, depressive thoughts because they're afraid that they're going to be demonized straight away by their doctors and then going straight to police and losing their license and their guns.
So to extend upon that, there's one guy in America talking about it. I think it was Mike Glover. He does a lot of self-defense stuff. And he's talking about, I think it's like the pillars of resilience or something like that. And one of the things they talk about is having like key things you identify as a person. So a lot of people, it's one thing. So it might be, a defense member. It might be I'm a pro footballer. It might be a good dad. Whatever it is you've got. But most people only have that one thing. So if you're the defense personnel or the football player and you break your leg or bust your knee and it's a career-ending injury, what are you now? What happens to your mental health?
Exactly.
So the importance of that is having a few factors to identify yourself to safeguard if you start to go down a bad path.
Yeah.
So I'm not just that pro football player. Well, I know I'm a good dad and I love to build muscle cars or whatever it is you do. So you've got other things that identify yourself if shit falls apart. And that sort of helps, again, to safeguard that mental health thing too.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that's, with schools and everything else, that's a lot of what needs to be educated and touched on. It's not just glossy, flashcards. And I hate to say it, I see a lot of charities do this because I looked at getting into that space around with the safety stuff, is that a lot of it's seems like you're grabbing the cash and running. Not all the mental health charities and stuff like that, but some of them. There's always going to be bad eggs that ruin it. And I think firearms in our community really needs our own version.
Exactly.
Like a genuine level of support, however we can implement that.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a shame we can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Because again, you talk about it and it's, there goes your way of life. Because it's not just a thing you do. For most people, it's
a
your way of life.
Yeah.
You may not be out there every single day of the year, but you sure as shit thinking about it.
But
you drive past that paddock and you're like, is that a rabbit? Oh, there's sticks there. Is that a set of antlers or is that a tree?
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing. People going out there, that is their antidepressant as well. So if they're going through something and then you take that means of them going out, it's only going to lead to more issues.
Well, what incentive is there to get better if you're asking someone to choose between their way of life and quote unquote getting better?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? There's no incentive whatsoever.
Rogan has a great quote on it. It's like, America doesn't have a gun issue. They have a mental health issue disguised as a gun issue.
Oh, 100%. Where you ever seen a sane person do something like that? You know what I mean? And I guess sane's a pretty loose word to throw out there, but how many times do you hear, even in Australia, they were known to police?
Yeah.
They've even speeding cars that crash into little kids.
Yeah.
Oh, he's lost his license for 88 years already.
Yeah.
What the fuck did you do about it?
Exactly.
Look, I'm a firm believer also of, the self-defense thing with firearms. That's, I guess, a different can of worms maybe for another day. It's getting a bit late, but...
definitely one for another day, I reckon.
Yeah. Like, there's definitely things that need to change.
Definitely. Yep.
And we can... Oh, sorry. We can take proactive steps to get there as well.
Yeah, that all I can agree with you with. That's for sure. But that's a good great answer for that question, and went down a bit of a rabbit hole, but it covered a lot of important subjects. I believe that's for sure. So if people have enjoyed what they've heard tonight, where can they find you? You've spoke about a little bit about Oz Fish and Game. Give a brief rundown of what you do there. And
yep. So Oz Fish and Game started off as a classified site. Whether I stay on that path, I'll do other things also, but is undecided at the moment in terms of the classifieds. When I started, there was the big three: used guns, Oz gun sales, and WSWA gun sales. And myself, maybe possibly another one. Now there's like 20 or 30 have popped up out of the woodwork, and good on them for getting in there and having a go. Pretty competitive. Might move away from that. I'm heavily focused right now and have been for a few months on the educational aspect. So try to do some videos, try to do some cool low spec meat eater stuff.
It's good, man. It's good.
Quality may not be there. Some sort of joke around piss take videos, although I've got to be careful about obviously firearms and if I can use them for certain videos and how they work into it. A lot of how-to stuff and articles. So the articles are key information, whether it's brucellosis, whether it's talking about white spot disease in prawns. I've got some how to get a certain firearm license in certain states. I was going to do a thorough every state, every license, and there's a lot to do. So
it definitely is a lot. That's for sure.
Education stuff. Video-wise, again, I was talking before. I was thinking about making a podcast. Look, I might post up some rants on occasion. I'd rather just jump on with other guys and talk with guys like you. It's hard when you sit there by yourself and monologue and
it is.
Just get fired up.
Credit to those guys that can do podcasts by themselves, because I definitely couldn't do it.
Yeah, I take my hat off to them. So obviously you've got Facebook, Oz Fish and Game. So that's OZ, not AUS.
Yeah.
So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and the website. So it's ozfishandgame.com.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Check out the stuff. He done a great piece on bow fishing a couple months back.
Oh yeah, I'm still waiting to hear about all that too.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be too many people.
Don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath. I know that one of the guys from FOU only just got an email back from something they tried a year and a half ago, and they just got an email back about it. So don't hold your breath with. And I think it was New South Wales too. So
yeah, okay. Look, I'm pretty spiteful of that stuff. I'll dig in harder if they knock me back. So
oh, trust me, I'm the same about this bow hunting ban in South Australia at the moment. You know.
Yep.
Every time that I see an answer I don't like, I dig my heels in further.
That's good. It's good motivation.
But anyway, man, I really, really appreciate you coming on tonight. We've spoken about it for a couple of months about getting around to it, so I'm glad that we finally did. So
that's good. Only a message away, so if you want to tee it up again,
yeah, no,
work
definitely,
out,
definitely, man. But yeah, thank you very much.
No worries, man.
Thank you guys for listening. If you're not following us yet on Instagram, head over there. Facebook, @Hunting Connection Podcast. Instagram, @Hunting Connection Podcast. Twitter, @Hunting Connect. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share with your friends, family. Tag us in your photos on social media, your videos, whether even if you're just listening to it, take a screenshot, tag us in it. You know, all of that helps. Subscribe, rate, review, help us grow the podcast. Thank you for listening.